Hello and welcome back to
Gift of the Gab.
Gift of the Gab, episode 3.
Yep.
Because we're not consistent at this at all.
No.
So,
we'd like to apologise that it's taken a long time for us to come back and talk to you, our beloved listeners of Free. But
they might be watching this in the future, so
Okay.
there might be more than 3.
Yeah,
but at the time of recording, we only have 3 avid viewers.
But that's okay, because, there's only 4 that watch JK.
Mm.
So anyway, there is a problem with downloading the first episode, the
Yes.
second episode, which the gift will tell you about.
So, we did the second episode, and I don't know if you remember the second episode, but we talked about a lot of naughty things.
We did.
We made fun of Fred West, we made fun of pedophilia, and we made fun of Uncle Thatcher's Naked Basement Wrestling and Margaret Thatcher.
But there's still tickets available for Uncle Touchley's Nested Wrestling. If you
Naked
want,
Basement Wrestling.
if you want to inbox us or mailbox us or whatever you do, we can give you tickets. And also as well, I think we talked about Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un Chong Kon-won.
Kim Jong-un.
That's the one.
So the problem was, and let's break it down. Hence why it's up on YouTube as the lost episode. So I uploaded it the first time, and it went up there, and it was fine for a day.
Yeah.
You remember that? 'Cause
Yeah.
you saw it on the channel.
Yeah.
It was up for a day, and then it got taken down. No email from YouTube or whatever. So I just thought, maybe...
We thought we was going down. We thought we was going to prison. We thought we was like traitors.
We were the rebel without a cause.
We rebel without a clue.
So I uploaded it again, and it was up for an hour, and then got taken down again.
And still no police. And still no helicopters
And
or dogs.
still-
Rah, rah, rah.
Still no message from YouTube. So I uploaded it a third time, and it stayed. Hence why it's called the lost episode. It's up there at the moment. Let's hope it stays up there.
Yeah, so we're quite disappointed that we're not doing this from prison.
Yeah,
But,
I
you know.
mean,
I was already, and the gift had shaved his bum and everything, but there you go.
I think it's called bleaching.
Oh, blink chain.
Bleaching your asshole, or changing your ringtone.
So anyway, that's why we had problems with the last one, and why there's been a big gap.
What's there's been a big gap is because we have been doing a last hurrah of going around drinking a lot and doing comedy on the sideline. And the last place we went to was Brighton. Tell him about it.
Wow. What you have to remember, listeners, is that Brighton has a reputation of being a place you went for a dirty weekend.
By
Yes.
dirty weekend, you mean
Shagging your secretaries back in
Yes.
the 50s and 60s. So and also as well,
lots of affairs, lots of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I think it's safe to say.
it's safe to say.
Was what Brighton was all about.
And we also know that it's the gay capital of England. But to be honest, I don't think they should hold that title anymore.
No, that should be Newcastle.
Oh,
But
Newcastle.
More on to Newcastle
Later.
in a minute. Let's finish talking about Brighton.
Right, so we go to Brighton. As you know, the gift is doing comedy. He's a bit out there. He's a bit racist. Not racist. He's a bit, what's the word? Edgy.
I'm edgy.
And
How did you get edgy and racist mixed up?
I'm old.
Did you mean racy?
You're racy. He's a bit...
I'm a bit edgy.
You need to come and see his comedy show because I can't explain it.
Well,
but
when
anyway,
I get it off your phone, I'm going to put it up on the channel.
But to be totally honest with you, so we did this club that we thought that we'd be like, yeah, up for it. And what happened?
They were all entitled cunts.
Basically, in a word, yes. Brighton is split into 2 people. They've got the people that know what it's all about,
And
i.e.
you got your fucking Amdrab flabs.
arty-farty types. So we bumped into this person.
Let's
who-
not talk about this person. If you're talking about who I think you're going to talk about.
You know I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to just say... She's so far up her ass, she thought she was something else. And she kind of ruined Brighton for us. And it took us a few days to get over that. But then we were still in Brighton, so we did a few more comedy clubs. And it all worked out in the well, especially when we went to this other club that I don't know if I can mention it, but it was called See You Next Tuesday.
Yeah.
And there was one guy there, really good comedian, that was absolutely spot on with his humour and our humour.
Well, the whole place
merged.
really got me.
Yeah. So, we're not slagging off Brighton per se.
Oh,
I am. We're just saying that some of you Brighton people need to remember that you are meant to be the gay capital. You are meant to be, your whole history is about slagging and sleeping and shagging. And for you now to take the high ground, I think you're quite hypocritical.
What's happened in Brighton is... So everyone, throughout this whole time, everyone said Brighton is like the cultural epicenter, the mother brain of Britain is in Brighton, apparently, because culturally that's where all the things happen, the swinging 60s and, like you said, the gay boom and blah blah blah. And so they've taken that on board, and then they've turned that liberalness into entitlement, and so they're all just a bunch of cunts now who are walking around thinking that everyone owes something Brighton because Brighton's this cool hip happening place, when really it's fucking dirty, tons of graffiti, endless amounts of homeless people, which I don't mind homeless people, but these homeless people were coming up to... We got harassed about 5 times walking down one street.
Absolutely. We don't even get that when we go to London. Plus it was just...
when we was in Chicago, we never got that.
No, we never got that there either.
I think I only had one homeless guy come up to me and ask me if I had a cigarette. I said I don't smoke.
Plus, which is, and we're not just picking on groups here as well, because we went for a meal in Wetherspoons because we absolutely think Wetherspoons the best place to eat. £5 for food and drink. What can you moan? And even the staff there were rude and ignorant. And, we didn't ask for anything. There was a table. It was dirty. I said I'd give it a clean. The girl behind the bar said, no, don't worry. We'll send somebody out. Well, this young girl came out and went, what? Oh, I suppose you want me to wipe the table. And we were like, no, not really. We can wipe it if you give us a cloth. But her attitude stunk, and I'm sorry, Brighton, but you really need to get a grip on your on
yourselves.
Yeah, on yourselves, because you're not that important. And like the gift just said, Newcastle, babes, we are spot on with Newcastle. We've been there.
Let's talk about Newcastle now.
Well,
so there's a place in Newcastle called Easy Street.
Yay, Easy Street!
And it is so good of a night out. I think we wandered in there, not sure what to expect, because we were looking for a club or a pub to hang out in
we were.
For a bit. And so we just sort of stumbled in. But anyway, just 10 out of 10 Newcastle. This is so much better.
Let's just put it this way. We are working on, as we speak, of getting back there within the next month or so.
Yes, we are. We're doing tour.
Yeah. But again, like I said, the gifts, comedy is a bit racy and a bit edgy, but it's this new comedy.
It's exciting. It's shocking. It's what I grew up in, because the TV I grew up with watching TV in the noughties. And there's a reason why it's called the noughties.
It's because they were naughty.
It was very naughty. They were very naughty. And it's just a lot of tits and arse and shockingness and fucking all that. And then that's obviously what I grew up with. So that's sort of what my comedy is like. Free with words and shit like that. Yeah. Plus, and now just comedy is just so secular. Not secular. Secular is the wrong word. Comedy is just so... Everyone's trying to appease everybody, but the whole point of comedy is you make fun of people. That's the point of comedy. You make fun of people because really we all think that... Sorry, there's a lot of philosophicalness behind my comedy chat, but we all roughly think the same.
Of course we do.
And so when a comedian goes on stage and he's all like, oh my God, or she goes, oh my God, I can't believe I do this, and the whole crowd goes, oh yeah, we do that, that's funny, and they clap it and shit. But now, because everyone's trying to all be individual and different, comedy's turned into this weird fucking... What's the word? Like a weird child, but it's not a child.
No.
It's just like this weird outside, but it's not outside because it's trying to be all-inclusive.
The thing is with comedy, people, you have to remember, my father listened to the Goons, and he watched, and I watched as a child, programs like 40 Towers,
Benny Hill,
who Monty Python, who did them?
Monty
Monty
Python.
Python, yeah, Monty Python. Of course, Monty
Python and the Flying Slugs. Who did Monty Python? Is that Monty Python? I think it could have been.
You know, and then of course I grew up with the comedians, the TV programs. I don't necessarily agree with some of them, but you know, we had the blacks taking the piss out of the Irish and the Irish taking the piss out of the blacks. At the end of the day, people, we are people. It doesn't matter what colour of our skin is, we are all the same people. We all want the same things and we all laugh at the same things. And when I, in the 80s, when I saw the alternative comedians come in, and remember now, these alternative comedies that were taking the piss out of the government and now multi-millionaires, look at Ade Edmond, got his own little place, they sold out to the man. At the end of the day, there is nothing wrong with tits and ass. There is nothing wrong with taking the piss out of the government. There is nothing wrong taking the piss out of black people or Irish people, because, honey, they take the piss out of us. You just got to watch some of these American comics from America, like Eddie Murphy and things like that. We are white honkies to them, and they are... I'm not going to say the N-word because that is disrespectful, but we have had many names. At the end of the day, it's just a joke. It's just for fun. And people forget that. Don't forget England. You know, back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, it was all dirty postcards. That's where you got your carry on from. That is our history. That is our past. And we should be proud of our past. And I'm not just saying because we're English. I'm not excluding any other nationality, because England is made up with black people, Chinese people, Asian people. That is our culture. And they've laughed as long with us at these things. Don't you think?
100%. I mean, I was just letting you went with the ball, you rolled with it, and I agree 100% with that, of course. I believe that as human beings, we're allowed our opinions.
Yeah. I mean, if we don't take the piss out of nationalities or race or colour, we end up taking the piss out of people. I mean, bloody hell, last weekend, we were watching Britain's Got Talent, and there was that guy. What was wrong with that guy?
I don't know, I think he had cerebral palsy.
Yeah, cerebral palsy, couldn't speak. And yet he was even taking the piss out of himself. So we're allowed to take the piss out of ourselves, but we're not allowed to take the piss out of anything else. We can pick on the government, but we can't pick on the royalty. I'll tell you, people, it's fucked up. You are talking to now, I'm talking to you as somebody that has, through my father and through my son, had from the 50s right up until today, comedy in me. We all say, oh yeah, Malcolm and Wise were the greatest. And they were, but they did stupid things. And who did they pick on? Des O'Connor.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Malcolm and Wise, Des O'Connor would have died years ago. Nobody would have even known about him.
Des, short for desperate.
Yeah, exactly. And I brought my children up to respect and to love all forms of art and all forms of comedy. So when my boy now goes out and does comedy and people poo-poo it, it makes me very angry, because without your racism jokes and your comics of the 70s, you would not have the comedy you have now.
Well, it's not just that. It's just... in my act, I don't do anything racism or anything like that. I talk about stuff I know, because you always told me to talk about stuff I know. So, you know, I just talk about, like, sex, porn a lot, being gay.
Well, we all watch porn, love. I
keep
asking him to buy me a vibrator for my birthday, but he won't.
Being gay and being... because my dad is black, so talking about that side of my life. And of course on your side we're Jewish, so I talk about that on stage as well. But at the end of the day, when it comes to comedy is just about having a laugh. Ken Dodd, who we got into recently because he died recently, which is really weird time to get into somebody because they're dead. But he even said, you're just having a laugh, and that's all I'm really here to do, is just to have a laugh. And if it's someone else's expense, I don't... It's so weird what I'm about to say. It's not at someone else's expense, but if you make fun of something, people would always take offence to it.
I understand. I mean, at the end of the day...
But there's nothing but love behind what I'm saying. I do a joke where I go, 2 girls ask me for a threesome, they said it'll be like winning the lottery. They were right. We had 6 matching balls. And like, that's a joke about having sex with transgendered people, which I don't give a fuck if you're transgendered or not. It's just a funny joke because it's a joke where people weren't expecting it to go there.
Yeah, exactly. And plus,
where the setup of that joke is people go like, "Oh, he's lucky he's had sex with 2 women," and then to turn it and be like, "Actually, I had sex with 2 trans people." Don't also forget that in that same joke, in which some people could take offence to it because it's quite transphobic, because I'm saying they were right, we had 6 matching balls. The punchline is the fact that they've got testicles. Don't forget as well, in that joke, I'm also saying I'm having sex with these 2 trans people. So, I don't know, it's so weird because, like, at one time you're like, I'm just saying it because it's a laugh. But then when people take offence to it, you sort of look at them like, you're an idiot. Because it's just a tiggle. It's just something to make other people laugh.
Exactly. At the end of the day, I think the whole world has gone too crazy with this. Well, we're going to talk about the Snowflake Generation in a minute, but but people are so worried about upsetting other people. We've all been to school. We've all been bullied. We've all been picked on. We all feel inadequate at some point in our life. Girls especially, they look at models. They look at these airbrushed models and they think if they're not that size or they're not that person, we shouldn't have a life. We shouldn't be allowed to live. But at the end of the day, we're all just people and we're all just trying to get through. And all I can say to anyone, just take a chill pill, love. World War III could start at any moment. You know what I'm saying?
So it really not bothers me, but it makes me so fathomed to the point of, you have these people now, and I know that's a very racial way to start a conversation. You have this group of people who are out there and they're fighting what they think is the good fight, and they're trying to get support towards whatever they're trying to support, and blah 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 and stuff like that. But then a lot of it is just self gain. A lot of it is just, I can gain this from this situation, so that's why I'm going to do it. And I was having a conversation with a lady recently who was a feminist, and she was proper going on about how much of a feminist she was and how tough she has it now. And she kept saying that, oh, it's so tough now in 2018 for women. And you know what? I'm sure it is tough for women out there. But at the end of the day, during fucking World War II, whilst the men was off fighting, women practically ran Britain. They were in the factories fixing things and making ammunition, and they were digging gardens, and they were raising kids and doing all this shit. And you're like, you thought you had it hard, love. Like, fucking...
Gift, we can go back further. Look at what the suffragettes went through. They were being force-fed when they starved in prison. Look at that woman that threw herself in front of the horse.
Emily Davis.
At the end of the day, every generation has a struggle. At the end of the day, me and the Gift are very proud that we live in England because we're multicultural, multiracial, and we wouldn't have it any other way. But you know, people, you know, listeners, as we know, that if you're pushed into a corner, you are going to pick on the person. If it's a black girl, you're going to say, you're black bitch. If it's a fat girl, you're going to say, you're a fat bitch. You know it, people. You know, you're going to pick on the first thing you see. And trust me, even if you were the most perfect person, perfect looking, perfect height, perfect weight, if somebody's going to pick on you, they will find something to pick on you. If it's your name, if it's the way you dress. But the thing is, right, you are never, ever going to get rid of racism or people picking on people. But when it's comedy, it's comedy. It's a laugh. No offence. Nobody went to war over a joke. But they went to war over fucking religion.
And they went to war over women as well.
And if you want my opinion, for the sake of humanity, we should get rid of religion. Because it's, all you got to do, people, is love each other. But the thing is, can we now talk about the Snowflake Generation?
Yeah, crack on.
We now have this generation. The Gift looked it all up about generations. Give them your list, babe.
Okay, so, generation, the people I researched, and by researched I mean I quickly Googled, they wrote many books, and I forget their names, unfortunately. I'm not even going to be bothered.
But you
to
can
look it up.
Google it yourself.
So the first generation that they looked at were people called the baby boomers. And they split each generation up into like early or late because of some reason. So if you're an early baby boomer, you would have been born in the 1940s. And if you're a later baby boomer, you would have been born between 1960 and 1964.
So what is a baby boomer?
A baby boomer is basically after the Second World War, I think.
Yeah.
All the men came home and, they were horn dogs. So they fucked the shit out of the women. And the women fucked the shit out of the men. And they loved it. And then tons of people were pregnant because what happened during the Second World War was absolutely disgusting.
It wiped out quite a lot of the population of the whole world. This is not just England. We're talking to the whole world now.
So this is almost like nature
filling itself
balancing
up again.
itself up.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that's what the baby boomers were. Now, after the baby boomers were the Gen Xers.
That's me!
So you had the early Gen Xers, they were 1960s, often called the latchkey kids.
Very true, we were.
Do you want to explain what a latchkey kid is?
Both parents went to work and you let yourself into the house, i.e. that's what it was, a latchkey, because it was the way of letting into your house. And you basically had to fend for yourself because mum and dad were at work and you would have to do your share of work in the house. And that's what latchkey kids were. We were the lonely generation.
Yeah, also, I was about to say that as well. Sometimes known as the lonely generation because of
our parents being at work.
Parents being at work or because
and
divorce rates
was
were
then
high.
becoming popular. Well, it wasn't
But
becoming
not popular.
No, but it was becoming more acceptable because up until the 70s, if you got divorced, it was shameful. Shameful it was.
Shameful, my love. And then you have the later Gen Xers, who were people born in 1980s.
Yeah.
They were known as the MTV generation because they would have grown up
with
and
MTV.
made MTV popular.
Yeah.
And they're usually characterised as being like slackers or cynical because they were the... during the Gen X, later Gen X's 1980s, they were going through a recession. There was a recession going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And also as well,
Ronald economics.
You want to look at a typical later Gen X, you just watch The Simpsons, baby.
Yes. And then you have the millennials.
Which is you!
Who are the children of the baby boomers. And so an early millennial was people born in the 1980s. They were called as the eco-boomers because it was at that time fucking...
Everyone started to worry about
the planet and shit like that. And then you got the later millennials, the 1990s to the 2000s, who are known as the liberal generation. They went through the Great Recession. Sorry, I've got it written down here.
Yeah, they went through a recession as well. I mean, we've had 2 great recessions in this country. A lot of your listeners might not know it, and a lot of sometimes it didn't affect people. You know what I mean? Like, if you had nothing, then we're going for a recession. It didn't make no difference. But people that were rich did feel the difference.
And so I come in the later millennials. I'm liberal.
You are liberal, very liberal.
I'm probably too liberal.
I think so. It's hard to keep his clothes on, listeners.
This is where it comes into it because the Snowflake Generation is like a subcategory of the millennial generation or millennials, and so Snowflake Generations are young adults of the 2010s, so they would be millennials. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now, so I looked up what a young adult
Snowflake
is classed as. And so a young adult is someone between the age of 18 or 35 years old. A middle-aged adult is someone between the age of 36 to 55. And an old adult, apparently that's the term, old adult, is someone who is 56 plus.
I know. The thing
so it's so weird because I come in as a later millennial, 1992. I'm a liberal gen, but then I'm supposed to fall under this Snowflake Generation, but I don't fall under the Snowflake Generation because I couldn't give a fuck.
The trouble is, I think, although we've classified the generations, what you got to remember is there was overspill.
Oh, there was a lot of sifting through as well, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of millennials I know think that they're Gen Xers, and a lot of Gen Xers I know think that they're baby boomers. And it's just like backwards and forwards of...
It's not just that, but it's like, although the gift is saying he's, is it Generation X?
I'm a millennial.
He's a millennial.
But I believe I'm a Gen X somehow.
Because...
But I remember growing up watching MTV, though.
Yeah, and also as well, it also depends on the way the parents were. Like, my parents were very... Parents of the 60s, they were very bohemian. They never treated me as a child. We talked about politics. We talked about what was happening in the world. I was never pushed away or told. Because I was that latchkey kid, I was treated as an adult at a very early age. And I must admit, I've been quite free and easy with my children. Like I said, the humour that my father listened to, I've passed on to my children. We've actually listened to tapes of the Goons. We actually love Pete and Doug and some of the 60s stuff, and that you pass that on to your children. This is what made your granddad laugh. This is what made me laugh. This is what... So that's where it starts getting confusing. But the thing is, I think if you treat your children as young adults from a very early age, you get... Like, I am very proud to have Gift as my son, because his comedy spans back. We've even talked about old musical with
musical
acts. Exactly.
Like Champagne Charlie and shit like that.
And all of that, because again that was something, again, my father, he liked that kind of humor. So, you know, we're quite humorous people, and it really annoys us with this Generation X because the Snowflake Generation, because they're not going to be able to cope. The war people coped because they lived through a war. I mean, you never heard of, after the Second World War, you never heard of the Second World War, everyone going into fucking therapy. Therapy, what the fuck's that? It's like in Africa, a woman will go behind a bush and give a birth to a baby. She'll strap it on her back and carry on working. Fuck me, the Snowflake Generation break an L and have to take a week off work. I mean, what's going on, people? You know?
Well, there's a disorder in the world. It's not, a disorder's quite a bad term.
Called the Snowflakes?
No. And I want to say it's something called... it's the something Kruger disorder. And
the Freddy Krueger.
No, it's not Freddy Krueger. It's like Donald Kruger, not Donald. Donald's. We'll talk about Donald Trump in a minute, because a lot of shit's happened since the last episode. But it's like someone else's name, like with a hyphen, Kruger disorder. And what it basically means is you've got... It sounds harsh when you first hear it, but then you take it home and you think about it or whatever. And it's basically people below their station, which is fine to have people below their station, as in, like, people are not going to achieve greatness. And that's the problem. A lot of us aren't going to achieve greatness. And there's a lot of people that can't deal with that. So you've got these people that aren't going to achieve greatness. And this disorder, this whatever name, Kruger disorder, is people who aren't going to achieve greatness think that they should achieve greatness. And so they start doing this I'm going to call it shit, this shit of like going, oh, I'm offended by that and I'm going to start this great movement and it's going to change the world. And they're trying to force themselves to achieve greatness.
Yeah.
Despite they're not. Because at the moment, and this is why I think the Snowflake Generation have sparked up, and you've got like and I'm going to call them extremists now, but you've got like the extremist trans people who are saying on TV, on interviews, if you misgender a trans person, that is just like lynching a black person during the 1960s in America. I'm just going to let that settle in, because I just looked at the goose's face and she looked pissed.
Yeah, because no offence, right? What the black people in America did to get their even the slightest toe in, that is fucking ridiculous. And what you got to remember, people, is we are English. We have not had the race riots like they did in America.
We did. We had a race riot. We had Brighton.
We did.
Fucking Electric Avenue. A whole song dedicated to that riot.
But the thing is, what I'm saying, we didn't have the likes of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, which are our heroes, by the way. We absolutely respect these people.
I've got his book down there.
Exactly. But what annoys us about the Snowflake Generation in particular is the fact that you can't say anything without them getting pissed off. And then if you tell them you're pissed off, they get pissed off because you swore at them. Now, come on, people. You talk about transgender. All through English history, you've had men dressing as women and women dressing as men. Please, there's nothing new about it. most of pantomime's all about that. And back in my day, we had a man called Danny LaRue. He was top of his tree. He was on all the TV programs. He played in front of the Queen, and he dressed as a woman. So come on, people. Come on, Snowflake. Get a fucking grip. Because when World War III comes, and it will come in your lifetime, Snowflakes, you will not cope. The human race will die because of you.
Well, this is what's happening, isn't it? Is that there is a certain intellectual downgrade which is going on at the moment because of the Snowflake Generation and because of this disorder I talked about. People are now believing again that the world is flat. They are called flat earthers, and they generally do believe that the world is flat. You got people who are walking about saying that we don't care what science says, there's unlimited amount of genders, and you're just like, but science clearly dictates there's only two. If you want to believe that there are different genders, that's fine, crack on. And if you need to do fucking major surgeries to change yourself to be the gender and to be happy in your life, crack on, do whatever you want, but do not start changing the language that we think in, because when you start changing the language that we think in, you start changing the way we think, and that is thought control, and that is very
dangerous.
That is very dangerous, and it's very fascist
and detrimental.
And just the moment you start playing with language like a lot of extremist groups are doing nowadays, you start changing the way we think and view the world, and it's unfortunately making the human race a lot more weaker than it actually is, and a lot more stupider than it actually is. We are a group of people that have evolved so much that we've able to do flight. That used to be a Greek mythology of Isaac and he's flying too close to the sun or whatever. But we've achieved that, and we're just going backwards now. Your thoughts?
Well, Gift, I totally agree. First of all, we are humans, regardless of our race or colour. Then we are either boys or we are girls. And if there are boys that want to be girls and girls that want to be boys, fair play. But there are only two sexes, people. Now, transgenders, whatever, that's fine. Be what you want to be. But remember, you're either a girl or a boy. You're not, unless you're that really crazy guy in America that wants to be an alien.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought up America, because America, what happened? He's not American, but I know him for American TV, so I class him as American. He's actually Canadian. But there is a man living on this world right now who left his wife and numerous kids, he had more than a couple, to identify as a 7-year-old girl. Now, if he wants to do that, great. But he's left a wife and he's left kids to, I don't know, fend on their own. I don't know how I could say this. As a man, I can't really comment on it. Here's a woman's view on it.
At the end of the day, people, you can be what you want to be. But if you take on the responsibility of getting married and having children, especially having children, relationships come and go, but children are forever. And if you take on that responsibility, just because the world's got too much for you, you should have thought that when you stuck it in her. You need to stay for the children.
Well, that's what he kept saying in the interviews. I don't know if you've seen it. I've watched it non-stop because anything weird that's happening in the world, I love to watch it. And he's like going, yeah, I can't cope with my reality, so I'm going to identify as a 7-year-old girl.
Most of us most of us cannot deal with our reality. Our reality is shit. We get up, we go to work, we come home, end of story. We make things exciting for ourselves. We live for the weekends. We live for going out. We live to enjoy ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. That's been going on for thousands of years. And like I said, the same with trans
people.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to look at Roman times, you know. You look at Roman times, they had it then, babe, but we're having it now.
Oh, but, yeah, the biggest empire, sorry to cut in there, but the biggest empire that ever lived on this world, because even the English Empire didn't come close to how much land that the Roman Empire controlled. They were having fucking orgies, and they had tons of gods, and they had tons of people dressing up as women for the entertainment of men, and vice versa, men dressing up as women for the entertainment of women. It was just, I don't know, I feel like it all boils down to, we're here for such a short time. We're here for too short of a time that we can't really achieve anything.
That's it.
And we're here not long enough to do anything great.
No.
So what are we here for? Just to have a fucking good time.
Exactly. And that's why I don't think there should be any restrictions on comedy. Because, like I say, you watch black people and their comedy, they will take the piss out of themselves. They will call themselves the N-word, and they will take the piss out of white people. And as a white person, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit.
Well, no, we were laughing, weren't we?
Yeah.
We were watching, sorry to immediately throw under, we were watching the Cat Williams special. We watched Eddie Griffin, we were watching Dave Chappelle, and they're just funny comedians, funny people, and of course, they talk about race, and it's just still funny for both sides.
Exactly. And like I said, at the end of the day, if it comes under the heading of comedy, I think you have to remember it's comedy. And things that have changed and you know, people, we get so bogged down with all these labels. Fuck me, it's hard enough to get by every day just going to work, making a living. Does it matter? Does it really matter at the end of the day? I mean, I'm really glad, because we were watching that Stephen Lawrence program the other day.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that things are changing, and I'm glad that we're getting more open-minded, and I'm glad because when I was a kid, yet again, going back to the late 60s, early 70s, I was brought up with Asian people. I went into their house as a little girl. I was looked after by this woman in a road, and we had the blacks, and we had the Asians, and we had the Chinese, and there was no colour. There was no colour. Can you imagine that? I would go into this Asian woman's house, and her grandmother was making me chapatis, and she was making them by hand and cooking them on a little stove. I used to watch the girls in the morning when they did their hair and they put string in it. They gave me their bracelets. They gave me their saris because there was no colour. We were all one. We were all children. And now there is such a divide because they're saying, oh, well, you can't say that and you can't say that. But people back in the 60s and the 70s in Southampton, we were all one people. In fact, we used to sit at night with our legs through it was a 3-story house with like a basement. We used to sit with our legs dangling through. We was watching the local prostitute making money, you know? That's what we did. And I'd have an Asian on one side and a black on the other and an Irish person. But we didn't see no colour. We broke into biscuit factories. We ran around playing together. We went swimming together. And this generation, this is so crazy for me, and it makes me so fucking angry. Because at the end of the day, yes, we do have racial people in this country, and I am ashamed when I hear about these people. But the average person, the normal average person, will stick up for their neighbour, whether they're black, whether they're white, whether they're Asian, whether they're Chinese, because we are people and we are part of the human race, and that is what everyone from day dot has always done. I'm sorry, I got a bit political there.
That's all right. I'm just sat here thinking like, well, we should take a break. I don't know really how to continue from that. So shall we take a little break?
We'll take a break, and when we come back, it will be a bit lighter.
Yeah. All right.
So I told her she could get 3 for 20.
No.
I know.
Oh, we're back. We're back on the air.
Hello. First of all, apologise for getting very deep there. We didn't mean to.
Well, no, yeah. Well, we say we didn't mean to, but we did, so there must have been.
Well, it's just
either the crowd will get it or they won't. I mean, I don't apologise. I never censor myself, even on this YouTube channel.
You don't censor yourself in life, love, so why
exactly.
should you censor yourself now?
In my mindset, you know, the world is quite explicit and it doesn't censor itself, so why should I? I'm just a part of this world. But anyway, enough of that, because we said we were going to change subjects.
We are changing subjects, because I'm sure they're bored of us.
Let's talk about the news.
Woo-hoo-hoo! What part of the news? Our friend Putin.
Well, Putin's not really turned out much. He had that bother with us.
Yeah.
And by us, I mean Britain, not us. Putin, if you are listening, please come evacuate us. We love you. I don't even know if that picked up. Look at that. Empty space.
Basically, he was saying, please come and get us. Yeah. Do not judge all people by our leader's standards.
So Theresa May.
Yeah, love her.
Kicked out the Russians. Diplomats.
Over the poisoning thing.
The poisoned people turned out alright, I think, didn't they? The girls turned up alright.
Yeah, they're okay.
Close to World War III breaking out, and Korea have united.
Yes!
If I believe that to be true. North and South Korea finally...
Yeah,
there's been pictures of them holding hands in a very romantic way.
It won't last.
I think it will last for the war.
Yeah.
There's a war coming, get ready, people. But I think it's going to last for a while.
It most probably will. I think what helped with them was the Olympics.
Yes, didn't they show unity during the Olympics?
Yeah. I think you have to show unity. Whether he'll give up his toys, Kim Jong-un. That's the guy. I don't know. He always comes across as a bit of a spoiled brat to me in the news.
Well, from my knowledge of Korean culture, South Korea culture, sorry, and I've watched a documentary about it and stuff like this, is the Kim family, the Kim Jong-uns and the Kim Jong-ils, were thought of, and like the past generation, I don't know their names, were thought of as literal gods.
Yeah.
Like there are statues built of them. So if you're born into that world...
And fed that bullshit.
And fed that Kool-Aid, you've got you're going to disconnect very quickly from reality.
Exactly. And I hope it lasts. I hope
the unity lasts. This is what this is my prediction. And if it comes true, then I'm going to be known as soothsayer. But I think the two Koreas are going to unite.
Yeah.
So Asia's going to be a nice, strong continent.
We love Asia to be a nice continent.
Well, we won't because of what's going to happen. And then it's going to be Russia and Asia, two superpowers, and they're going to start the war, but they're going to be on one side of the war, and then we're going to have America and Europe as the other side, and it's going to be 4 superpowers. I don't know if Europe's class is a superpower, but in my mind it is.
We just follow. The thing is, as our listeners know, not my listeners, they're our listeners.
You trying to steal all my listeners?
You know it.
You got a side project going on?
All right, I've got 1.5 of those listeners. Anyway, as our listeners know, I am not a great fan of Donald Trump. Now, I know a lot of people, and I have had this argument in my day-to-day work as well.
In real life?
Yeah, in real life, not just on here. They think he's wonderful. I do not think Donald Trump is wonderful. I think he's a very spoiled brat. In the fact that he tweets everything. He should be a snowflaker.
He is a snowflake. Well,
he's not. He's 70 years old.
My favourite quote ever by Donald Trump was when he was being interviewed about how he started his business or something like this. And he said, oh, like normal kids, I got $1 million loan from my dad. And you're like, what normal kids are you hanging out with, Donny?
Honey, I couldn't even give you 1,000,000 pennies, not like £1,000,000.
It's insane. It's insane. He's just from a... But you know what it is? And I think it was either you I was talking to or fucking Priscilla I was talking to. But I was talking to one of you. And just... It's history literally repeating itself.
Of course.
Back in the 80s or whenever he was really popular, Ronald Reagan, a film star, which was America's biggest export by then, was films because of Hollywood and stuff. He became a politician and everyone said, there's a war going to start, and he turned it around because he was having special relations with that guy with the tea stain on his forehead.
Yeah, the Russian guy.
And now we've got...
And he was shagging Margaret Thatcher.
And now we've got Donnie Trump, who, a reality TV star, which is America's newest export. Reality TV's on the high. bigger than films. You got the Kardashians and shit like that.
To be honest, that's, again, just sorry, I know we said we wouldn't talk about what we were talking about before, but I think that's the whole problem with the Snowflake Generation. They've seen these reality programs and they think they're it.
Yep. Well,
But you were
Side note, put a pin in what I was talking about Donald Trump. You've got to look at the titles of these shows, and you know what? I'm sure the Kardashians are nice people, but look at the title. Look at the title of the show. Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Like, the rest of the world have got to keep up with them.
No, thank you. Anyway, get your pin out of Donald Trump.
Pin out of Donald Trump.
My favourite person to slag off.
So Donald Trump is now head of state for America, who's, like we said, biggest export is reality TV
he's
shows.
the leader of the free world.
Leader of the free world, whatever you want to call him. He's the highest, yeah. So you got him, just like Ronald Reagan, and just like in Ronald Reagan, time and presidency, Donald Trump's having troubles with Russia. Yeah. Just like Ronald was having troubles with Russia. And so either it's going to turn out okay and Donald Trump's going to turn out to be this amazing man who can make this peace treaty with the guy with a tea stain on his forehead, or they'll put in Putin instead of the guy with the tea stain on his forehead, or, and probably more likely, because of the way the rest of the world's sorting itself out, we are heading towards World War III.
I agree, and I'll tell you why. The guy with the tea stain on his head, which we really must find out his name.
We must, but...
He was up for change. Putin is not up for change. Putin wants his country back in communism, which is fine. You know, the country, I think, survived better under there. I don't know. But
the USSR.
Yeah.
That run the country.
But with, I think, it goes tits up with these people because they have weak leaders. And Donald Trump is a weak leader. Everything Donald Trump does, he fucks himself over because he tweets it.
Yeah. He has backpedaled on quite a bit.
He has, because he's run off with his mouth, and then his advisors have said, "Oh, I don't think you should have said that, Donald."
Well, he's been in for, let's say roughly, he's been in about a year now. Yeah,
where's your assassins, America? Why ain't you popped him out?
It's been up to a year. Let's look at what he promised in his running campaign. Build a wall. The Mexicans will pay for it. There's no wall.
Well, no, the Mexicans wouldn't pay for it.
Put Hillary Clinton in prison. Hillary Clinton's not in prison.
No, she's married to Bill. She don't need to be in prison.
With Monica Lewinsky.
We loved Monica.
Oh, fuck, what was his third thing? He said he was going to get rid of Obamacare. He's not gotten rid of Obamacare. He's just changed the name.
We loved Obama.
We love you, Obama. Come back. 4 more years. No, do you know what? I hate the fact that people said 4 more years at Obama. Your institutes set up these these rules. And in America rules, you can do 4 years. That's classed as a term. A president can only do 2 terms. I agree with that 100%, because otherwise you're just going to keep going round and round in the same shit circles.
Like we did with Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
In the end, she had to leave.
Yeah, exactly.
And believe me, listeners, I was there the day they kicked her out, with tears in her eyes. I had just given birth to my second child. I had to go down Social Security because I was claiming at the time. I'm not proud. And I remember... And I remember... Only I'm proud on some things. And I remember the woman in Social Security talking to me, and she said, well, the government says you need this. I said, excuse me, have we got a government? Seeing we just kicked Margaret Thatcher out in the morning. Exactly. And she said, yes, because as we know, countries are not run on governments. They're run on civil service. Apart from Russia, who has Putin, and he's a very strong person. And at the end,
it's very manly.
We like a bit of manly, don't we, babe?
Well, yeah, you need a mix-up in the political scene, don't you?
I think the best thing that the whole world can do is just get and talk. But they never will. And it's just a shame, because at the end of the day, it's going to be all of us that will suffer.
You can't get people to sit and talk on political standpoints. Because, let's say person A and person B go in for a chat. Person A has got his own ideas of how a government should be run. Completely different to how person B thinks how the government should be run. So there's going to clash immediately. But what we all need to realise is, of course, that governments and
Civil
countries and maps
and civil servants
and no, I'm excluding those for purposely. So I go back. So governments and maps and countries and borders are all man-made. They weren't there originally.
No.
Whether you believe that we evolved from animals or apes, sorry, should I say, or whether you believe that God gave us this planet as a gift, we made all the things which we are now, ironically, fighting over.
Yeah. But again, that goes back to religion. Like I said, and I said it earlier, for the sake of humanity, I think we should get rid of religion, because we put restrictions on ourselves as human beings. We tie ourselves to a country. We tie ourselves to a nation. We tie ourselves to religion. We get offended when people slag off our race. At the end of the day, we are one race, the human race. And we need to work together, all of us, Russia, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, America, England, Africa. We've all had greatness in the past. You look back to fucking civilization was meant to start in Africa. Come on, people. Whether you believe it was the Garden of Eden or whether you believe it was the first intelligent ape, civilization started in Africa. We all have things to bring to the table. We all have things to sort out. But at the end of the day, we are the human race. That is our race. We are different, but we all want the same things. When we go to bed at night, our dreams are the same. We want a bit of land to live in peace, to have a wife or a husband, to have children. And if you're transsexual, you deserve the right as well. Gays, homosexuals, whatever you want to class yourself as, lesbians, you still want to find that person. You still want to live in peace. You still want to have the right to have children or to have dogs or cats or whatever. And that's all we want. And the sooner the fucking governments of this world, and especially fucking religion, get it through their thick skulls that we are all one people, the better. I'm going on again. Will you shut me up, Gift?
No, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I love it. I love it because that is exactly. And believe me if you want or don't, I really don't give a damn, to be fair. But I've read, and they're right there, you can see them. I've read the Quran, I've read the Holy Bible, and I've read the Torah. And that is exactly what they say in those books. Love one another, live in peace, just get on with your lives, just love one another no matter what. And it's, once again, I'm sorry to keep going on about it, but it's man, and by man I mean human race, that have warped that message for gain, profitable gain, or land gain, or gain over control.
Exactly.
And there's a reason why these parts of state are failing us now as we enter into 2018. And just as we enter more into the future, there's a reason why more people are angry at government, why more people are flocking away from religion, why more people are flocking away from nationalism. It's because, yes, at the beginning, fine, they worked perfectly. Religion worked perfectly when it first began because it brought a peace to the world. Because way back before religion was created, there was one man who was the biggest man, and he went around and he killed people, raped people, and took what he wanted. And the religion came and just said, if you do all that, you go to hell and God won't love you. And then that one man said, or the angry people said, all right, okay, fine, we'll stop. And then there was peace. And we had a cultural boom. We had great paintings, we had great books, and we had great moments in science that came from religion, as much as people like to blame religion for that. But now we've evolved as much as we can with religion, and we now need the next thing. But there's not a next thing, because there are people in the world who are drawing us back and dragging us back, sorry. And once again, to go full circle now, it's the Snowflake Generation,
exactly.
Or the Flat Earthers, and these people who are dragging us down, and by us I mean the general public, who, by the way, whether you believe that we came from God or whether you believe that we came from apes, this isn't our final forms. This wasn't how we were supposed to end up, of everyone living in fear that maybe a nuclear bomb might be dropped on us at any minute.
But unfortunately, that is the reality now, people. We are living in some people in religious circles would call it the last days. We have to unite. At the end of the day, right, I don't care what your religion is. People slag off Muslims, but there are some nice Muslim people out there.
The whole of the Quran, from what I've read, was quite alright.
Yeah.
My favourite quote from the Quran is, humankind is a brotherhood, so make respect for your brother, or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're just like, yeah, they're so right. They're so right. But it's that everyone goes on about the 1%. And the 1% of the 1% of richest people in the world, and they're holding all the money. And so we can all aim our hatred at 1% because they're holding all the money. But I believe this, and I've said this to you many times before, and I'll say this to anyone who meets me. I don't think it's the 1%. I think there's 5% of people who will take offence to anything.
Yeah, cause trouble makes trouble.
Makes trouble. And they'll just make offence to it. And like the political correctness chart came from that, and all this different stuff, and they've yearned their fucking magical weaving abilities. And then there's another 5% that react to that first 5%. And so that's 10% of the world. And then there's about 80% of us who are just trying to live our lives and have some fun and do whatever.
Exactly.
But it's because of that 10% who are constantly battling that our world's nations weave out fucking like political because of them, or because of religion or whatever. And it's those 10% that are constantly fighting, and they'll always be fighting, because there's 5% of the world that want to always be offended, and there's 5% of the world who always want to be on the attack, and it's the 80% of us that are being affected. And we're just trying to fucking live our lives, and we're like, we don't care if you believe in this God, and we don't care if you believe in that God, or we don't care if you even believe in no God.
Yes, it.
We don't even care. Or you know what? You could believe in 10 million gods for all we care about, or you could believe in this thing called karma, or you could believe in this, or you can do that, or hey, we don't care that you're this color or that color, or you do this or do that. But it's that 10% that fucking keep having this argument, and the news will always record on the 10%, because the fucking dog that makes the most noise will always get the most attention.
Very true, very true. It's like we were saying before about comedy. I remember when Ben Elton and the young ones, which were Rick Mail and Ade Edmondson, when they started, they were anti-establishment. They slagged them all off. Now, if you look at Ade Edmond and not Rick Mail, God bless him, he's died. But if you look at Ben Elton, they are middle class. They were middle class to begin with. They just got anarchy.
They were middle class pretending to be working class. Because at the time, nobody was tapped into the working class.
No. And
despite comedy, in my eyes, has always been a working class coping tool.
And yet, the comedians, which was a TV program back in the 70s, they were all working class. They had done their street in workingmen's clubs. The thing is, people, when you're young, you're easily persuaded. But as you get older, as we all know, time catches up with you, and you do become part of the human race. And at the end of the day, people, we still have our same dream when we go to bed at night, having a little bit of land, to have our loved ones, to have children, or dogs or cats, whatever your preference is. The world is big enough for all of us to live in, whether you're heterosexual, gays, lesbian, whatever you are. We just need to get along. As long as no criminal actions are done against animals and children, we can live in peace and harmony. And I think that it doesn't matter what your religion is or what your beliefs are. What you got to remember is one race. And as for the Snowflake Generation, they are going to bring us to our knees, because they need a kick up the arse, because they could not survive, because they're so, oh my God, you're hurting me, you're killing me. Okay, read Anne Frank's diaries. Read some Holocaust stories. Read some First World War poetry.
Look at fucking Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. People who actually experienced troubles in their life.
Look at the suffragettes. Then when you've got all that, then go to the snowflake people and say, what are you moaning about? You have not a clue how people have suffered. I grew up in the 70s, the 60s, the 70s and the 80s. I was still a teenager in the 80s. And I have seen things that this generation, this snowflake generation could never even cope with. You think of First World War or Second World War people, soldiers coming home from war. They never had fucking mental health running around. They went to bed, they got up the next day and they went to fucking work. None of this self-care or medication. At the end of the day, we do live a stressful life, but it's no more stressful than what we lived through and what we have lived through. As human beings, we will conquer this. We just got to stick together. And remember, honey, if it's got the label comedy, laugh. Because it's comedy. It's not serious. It's comedy, joke, ha ha.
And on that note, we're going to end the podcast.
And we are really sorry, listeners, that we got very deep and very emotional today. But we promise next time we'll be drunk off our tits and we'll have a laugh. And don't forget, the Gift does do comedy, so if ever you're around about and there's a comedy show, go, because you might see him. And if you do see him, go up and say hello.
Thank you very much for listening, ladies and gentlemen. And don't forget, love all the people. Thank you very much. Good night.
Peace, Gift of the Gab.